Canada has a long UFO history, and its government keeps a public record of sightings. In 2020, the number was 1,243, a notable uptick from the previous year, continuing a trend that goes back decades. But of all those sightings over all those years, there may be none as famous as this. November 7th, 1990. It's just after 7 p.m. in downtown Montreal, Canada. A guest is enjoying an evening swim in the rooftop pool at the Bonaventure Hotel, when suddenly she looks up into the sky and sees this. Look closely. 4 strange glowing green lights seem to point outward from the center like spokes, while 2 bright yellow lights can clearly be seen in the center of the object. The woman notifies management, and soon a group of people, including the police, come to the hotel rooftop. As the crowd gathers, initial estimates among witnesses place the lights at least 1,000 feet above the hotel. Journalist MJ Banias explains why this event is famous not only in Canadian history, but UFO lore.
The Bonaventure UFO incident was very unique because almost 30 people saw this strange object in the sky hovering above this hotel. And more bizarrely, this hovers above this hotel for 2 or 3 hours, and you would assume people in the city would see it. But the only people who were able to see this were the people on the roof of the hotel or on the sidewalk just outside it when they looked up.
Additionally, no aircraft was identified in that location by military or commercial radar. So what happened, and why this specific hotel?
2 UFO researchers were able to comprise a report quite quickly after the encounter, and they were able to collect significant witness testimony.
The witnesses all described to investigators a craft that matches what's seen in the photograph. But most intriguing is after the craft disappears, one witness later that night sees a boomerang-shaped object hovering over the Hydro-Quebec Long Point power station. Is it the same craft that hovered over the hotel?
This story has everything. And when you get a whole bunch of people telling the same story, it's going to automatically draw a lot of attention.
Montreal's Hotel Bonaventure is nestled on the top 2 floors of the sprawling 17-story Place Bonaventure. When it first opened in 1967, it was the world's largest commercial building at 3.1 million square feet, more than the Empire State Building. So perhaps the reason the alleged UFO in 1990 selected the Hotel Bonaventure was its size. But is it even a UFO? We asked our experts to take a look. We start with aviation expert Tim McMillan.
Basing it on the image here, possibly a helicopter that has a searchlight or some type of bright lights attached to it, but you would be able to see the warning lights that are on helicopters. Also, you can hear helicopters from miles away. They're loud, especially one that is hovering for 3 hours. That's a long time. But none of the eyewitnesses mentioned hearing a helicopter. So we could be looking at a drone, but this photograph was taken in 1990. The military-level drone technology was still in its infancy. And frankly, if we were looking at military testing drone technology, you don't do that over civilian populated areas.
In fact, McMillan believes if it's a flying machine, it's not one we know of.
We're able to rule out fixed-wing planes because they can't hover. I don't know of any good aerospace platform that would be able to fit both what we're seeing in the picture and what eyewitnesses said.
Is it possible location plays a factor? Meteorologist Juan Hernandez notes that Canada is well known for one of the most spectacular natural phenomena on Earth.
My initial thought was, could it be the Aurora Borealis? But Aurora Borealis often move and are quite transient. In this case, the report was a stationary light that lasted for several hours.
But the hazy nature of the photo does lead Hernandez to investigate if Mother Nature could still be playing a role.
I was able to track down the weather observations from that day. We do have temperatures that were actually about 30 to 34 degrees while this was occurring, but the relative humidity itself was somewhat on the high side. So whenever you have something like this, you oftentimes develop either some sort of fog or low clouds.
For astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio, that may be the key to solving this mystery.
I believe that we're seeing a reflection back from the clouds, the fog, that look like something else. You've seen this every time you go out in your car and you drive along on a foggy night. So these lights could have been lights from the pool and from some other lighting around the Bonaventure Hotel, reflecting up into the sky and then down to the pool again.
It's a plausible theory, but if it was the reflected pool light, wouldn't the guests and police there that night have put two and two together? Plus, consider this. It's been 30 years. There have been many foggy nights in Montreal in that time, and if it's a reflection, it's one that's never been seen again.
Whenever you're trying to form a really good investigation, you're testing different hypotheses, but I'm inclined to believe that multiple, potentially up to 80 witnesses, someone would have been able to determine if it was a light being reflected. Categorically, based on the image and what the eyewitnesses said, it is a UFO.
Our verdict? We're going with genuine UFO. As McMillan says, while there are plausible theories, in our view, we still don't have a smoking gun. The Hotel Bonaventure incident is still considered one of the most famous UFO sightings in Canada. So much so that in 2020, it was depicted on a $20 silver glow-in-the-dark coin. November 2021. A passenger on a train speeding through the Italian countryside notices something strange outside his window and starts recording. 3 orange lights in a triangular formation floating in the air above the horizon. Let's zoom in. The lights not only appear to be orbs, but they're also glowing. The video is uploaded to social media and quickly becomes a sensation.
A lot of the comments on the video obviously linked this light pattern to the typical triangular UFO, making claims that this was some sort of alien spacecraft.
Journalist MJ Benaya says that kind of reaction shouldn't be surprising.
Italy has a fairly rich UFO history. In the early 1950s, an entire soccer game was actually stopped in the city of Florence when a crowd of 10,000 people in the stadium looked up and saw a handful of strange oval-shaped UFOs fly over them.
Even before then, a UFO crash in 1933 allegedly became the catalyst for a secret program led by one of Italy's most notorious figures.
Some people believe that Mussolini, the famed Italian dictator, had a secret UFO hunting program. The idea was that in 1933, a UFO crashed in Italy, and Mussolini allegedly hired famed radio pioneer Guglielmo Marconi to figure out what this technology was and whether it could be weaponized.
The Italian Center for UFO Studies documented almost 10,000 cases over a 50-year period. And we've reported on some of them, including this anomalous event we investigated last year. Could this triangle be something related? We asked for our expert's opinion. We begin with forensic video analyst Michael Primo. Our first question, has the footage been manipulated in any way?
The lights appear to be real, at least to my naked eye when analyzing it frame by frame. But what the encoder is saying using macro block analysis is that this information in this green color is different than this information in this green color. So it's a possibility that some use of CGI was added to this recording based on the macro block analysis, but no definitive conclusions can be drawn at this time.
Acknowledging that red flag, we take the video to astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio to see if this could be a plane.
I don't think that this one here is an aircraft, because an airplane light of this brightness would be the landing lights, and airplanes generally have 2 landing lights, if not just 1 in some cases, not 3. Now, you could say, well, is this a stack of aircraft, one farther from the other, making a logical triangle from this perspective? But these lights look all the same brightness, and if you stack up planes like that, the furthest plane away is going to be several miles behind the first plane in the lines, will look a little bit dimmer and smaller than the one in the front.
D'Antonio rules out any commercial or military aircraft, but he does believe there is a clue to the mystery in the video.
If you also look carefully, when this train is moving, it passes a sign along the way. The sign is being held up by 2 legs, and this object passes in front of one of those legs.
The lights don't disappear when the train passes the sign outside. D'Antonio thinks it's because this mysterious object isn't actually in front of the photographer.
I think that this is a light fixture reflected in the window from one of the adjacent train seats.
But when we ask science writer Mick West to study the video, he disagrees.
I don't think this is a reflection. For one thing, it's the only lights being reflected that you can see. If it was a train with lots of people, you would expect to see more. and when the person filming it is moving the camera. You see these bits of dirt on the window move around. But when they're moving around, there's no movement at all with this object, which means that it's not a reflection.
By zooming in, Mick sees the lights are not staying in one place.
I took the video and I tried stabilizing the lights on the screen so they all stay in exactly the same position. And you can see that it's not like a single solid object. They seem to be moving somewhat independently. Another thing that you notice is that the distance between the lights and the tree line gradually decreases.
So we have orange objects that appear to be slowly drifting down. West believes there's an orange light that fits the bill. Military flares.
They're attached to little parachutes, so they just basically sink down fairly slowly, and they burn for about a minute or two, and then they'll usually drop.
Our verdict? This is a toss-up. We can't explain why the lights don't pass behind the sign, but we can't call it a reflection either. We can't even say for sure it's real. The military flare theory feels right, but our experts aren't unanimous. Until we know more, we have to say this remains unidentified. We're in Ardmore, Oklahoma for this one, with dedicated proof viewer Joey Franco. After witnessing what he thinks is a UFO one night above his home, Joey makes it his mission to scan the evening sky each night with his thermal camera for any other signs of extraterrestrial life. And on May 26, 2017, he records this.
Definitely a disc.
Take a closer look. Watch how the object appears to hover near the clouds, then deliberately it moves sideways. Then, Joey points a laser directly at it.
Whoa, did you see it stop? If I wouldn't have shined the laser at it, it would have never came back. It's almost right over the top of me now. I hope it don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. I've made contact with this thing. I hope I don't get taken tonight, man.
I'm like scared and excited all at the same time. It's like I never expected this to happen this night, to make contact with aliens.
Whoa, did you see that? It's gone, man. At 1,000 miles an hour, this thing booked.
Even journalist Aaron McCarthy wonders if it's possible Joey actually made contact with an alien ship.
It almost seems like there's a bit of an empathetic connection between Joey and whatever this craft is. He's talking to the craft.
It's coming right back at me, man. Isn't that amazing?
And it seems to be responding to him.
The idea of humans communicating with extraterrestrials goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years. Some theorize the Nazca people of Peru communicated with alien civilizations, and that some of the mysterious 1,200-foot designs they built were actually spaceship runways. And 3,000-year-old artifacts unearthed at Songqingdui, China, first in the 1920s and then in the 80s, have convinced many of alien contact in our past. But in the 20th century, others attempted to use the power of the mind.
There was actually a man after World War II named George Van Tassel who believed that he could summon and telepathically communicate with aliens by meditating. And they actually telepathically gave him instructions to build a structure out in the desert that was supposed to reverse the aging process.
In the 1950s, author and UFO contactee George Van Tassel brought together 11,000 people for his convention in the California desert, hoping to make contact. But was Joey able to communicate with aliens all by himself? We sent his footage to our experts to decide. We begin with Rich Hoffman of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. Does Joey's use of a thermal camera offer any clues?
Could it be a plane? No, it doesn't have wings to help hold it up. We don't see any heat coming out of the back end of it, which might be expelled from the heat from whatever the propulsion system was. So I don't put it in any kind of a category like an aircraft.
Astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio agrees this isn't an airplane. And he says a drone wouldn't move as erratically as this. But D'Antonio believes that sudden movement may be a key piece of the puzzle.
Whoa, did you see that?
You're watching it move through the sky, and then all of a sudden, it's gonna go right down to the ground. So the way it's flying right now, it kind of looks like a hawk. If you have to try to assign it to something, it most resembles a bird of prey.
Is D'Antonio right? Is this a bird on the hunt for its next meal? Science writer Mick West agrees the thermal camera does offer a clue.
All that we can tell about the temperature of this object is that it's warmer than everything else in the scene. It could very well be an animal.
So if it's an animal, what kind? West compares the object to a known creature that Joey also recorded.
Joey has this video here, which is a creature that he recognized as being a bat. And you can see the object flapping its wings. If we take the two videos and put them side by side, you can see when it's more clearly something with wings is actually a bit larger. Even though you can't really see anything like wings flapping like that in the object, it's hard to say. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that this isn't a bat and this is a bat, but in both videos, it's kind of very difficult to see what's going on because of the low resolution.
So what do we have here? If we can't see any wings flapping, it's hard to say bat or bird of prey. Has it turned out Joey may have found exactly what he was looking for?
I think a lot of the time when people think they are summoning aliens, they're just getting lucky. Eventually something's going to fly along. But this is a UFO because it's unidentified and it's flying. I don't know what it is.
What the hell is it?
Could be a bat, could be a bird, could be something else.
I've made contact.
Our verdict? Genuine UFO. While this could be some sort of animal, we agree with the experts that the video doesn't give us a clear enough image to make that call with confidence. So it remains unidentified. But when Joey does find that definitive proof, we'll be here to show it. November 2021, Henderson, Nevada. It's about 4 a.m. and practically everyone is asleep except for Jason Sir-Asi, who is squeezing in one last hour of stargazing from his backyard. When he suddenly sees this. Two groups of lights are seen in the sky, appearing to narrowly miss colliding with each other by mere seconds. Look closely. On the right is clearly a jetliner. But what is that strange T-shaped formation of objects on the left? Jason doesn't have an answer and can't believe what he's seeing. But as shocking as this near miss seems, author and blogger Amy Title says it may be part of a larger pattern.
In 2021, an American Airlines pilot made headlines when he radioed the ground saying that he saw a UFO out of his windshield somewhere over New Mexico.
We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object moving really fast that went right over the top of us.
But if Jason's video is a UFO attempting to get near or closely examine a jet, the question for investigators is why?
Ufologists don't believe that there's any firm theory on why UFOs would target commercial airliners. But many UFO sightings seem to be related to military jets or some kind of military technology. One of the earliest comes from 1967. American intelligence was listening in on communications from Cuba, where the pilot said at 33,000 feet that he saw a bright glowing disc out of his window.
What's going on here? We've seen a lot of UFO videos before in various shapes and patterns. Orbs, triangular, circular, cigar. But this T formation, let alone getting on video what looks like a near collision, is new to us. Will it stump our experts? We asked them to weigh in. Rich Hoffman of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies has been studying UFOs for decades. Does he think this object is from another world?
It doesn't typically match what we think of as a UFO. It doesn't make any apparent strange motions like advanced speed or instantaneous taking off.
That doesn't mean it's not a UFO, but that if it is, it's not acting like others. Still, could they just be two planes passing? Passenger jets are mandated to have lights all over the craft, including ones for taxiing, landing, wingtips, and blinking anti-collision lights. But Hoffman's not seeing that here.
It's a close match for an aircraft going across, but the lighting pattern on it and the fact that it doesn't have the blinking lights the aircraft are supposed to have, the object itself stumped me. I've never seen anything quite like it. In my investigations, we rarely, if ever, get something that looks like a T.
Next, we turn to aviation expert Tim McMillan. If it's not a plane, could it be a satellite? In 2019, SpaceX launched a global network of satellites providing internet coverage from space called Starlink. They operate in groups called constellations, and today there are over 2,000 in orbit.
Starlink is a long string of lights in the night sky. Starlink satellites are connected together, but we wouldn't be seeing a T formation.
Does the location play into the mystery? Jason shot this footage less than 100 miles from the notorious Area 51.
So now we are in the general area that secret aircraft do fly. But at the same time, it doesn't match up with what we should be seeing if it was a fixed-wing aircraft, a drone, or a rotary wing helicopter. And why would you do a really irregular light pattern on your top secret aircraft?
Although not convinced it's any airplane, McMillan does see a clue which leads into a theory that may explain why there appears to be a near collision.
When you're looking at the aircraft that passes by it, we see the contrail from it. So we can see that this aircraft is moving within the atmosphere, but we're not seeing the same atmospheric effects with our T object. That means that the object in our T formation is higher than whatever is the aircraft flying below it.
McMillan's theory is that this object is miles up in space, but not a satellite.
If I had to give my most likely explanation, is possibly the International Space Station. It's roughly 250 miles above the Earth's surface. You've got the big panels that are extended out. And so the lights that we are seeing, the sun could be reflecting on that portion as it passes over.
This one has us stumped. So we did some digging, and based on tracking data, it appears the ISS wasn't passing over Nevada at the time the video was shot. Our verdict, we're gonna go with genuine UFO. We just can't identify it. And for sure, Jason's experience proves one thing. If you keep looking up, there's no telling what you'll find. January 2017, North Bay, Ontario, Canada. It's 2 a.m. and TJ Elzinga is woken up by his son's crying. Then, after putting him back to bed, Timmy looks out the window and sees this. Take a closer look. A row of multicolored beams of light stretch across the horizon, shooting down from the sky into the ground. TJ ventures outside in the sub-zero temperatures for another view.
Oh my goodness. It was almost like something out of Star Trek or something, like Scotty beamed me up, and I was very confused as to what I was seeing.
And I've never seen this before in my life.
Now, you might be thinking this is the fabled Aurora Borealis, which is visible in the Great White North about 240 nights a year. But that phenomenon looks like this, not these clearly defined beams of light. Writer Eric Grundhauser agrees that these are unlike any phenomenon he's ever seen.
You see something in the sky like this, it's not unreasonable to think that some people would think that they're UFOs.
The phenomenon is somewhat reminiscent of these mysterious lights spotted above Montreal's Hotel Bonaventure in a now famous 1990 UFO sighting. That's still unexplained. Could this be a similar anomaly?
So this is not something anyone would expect. I think that most people would see these as an unnatural phenomenon.
Could these light beams be a hoax?
Upon investigation of the way that the camera captured this information, this shutter speed value is consistent with what we would refer to as nighttime photography or long exposure. The images are authentic. The images haven't been photoshopped in any way. Nothing was detected that suggests that they were fabricated or created.
Next, we go to astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio.
Is it a Martian invasion? Is it an alien attack? I know that people said that this was some kind of big UFO hovering in the sky, but there really isn't any structure visible. And you would think if it was that close, you would actually see some kind of structure.
So if these lights aren't alien in nature, could they be man-made?
Maybe it's a spotlight like you see when they try to announce a new car dealership opening. But there's a problem with that. A spotlight would stay at a relatively tight beam and then it would fade out. But we see that these lights, they start off nice and sharp, and as they climb, they kind of feather into the night sky. So this looks markedly different from a spotlight.
D'Antonio rules out anything man-made, so are we looking at a natural phenomenon? We take that question to meteorologist Juan Hernandez, and he points to an uncommon and rarely photographed phenomenon called light pillars.
Light pillars are a phenomenon characteristic of cold climates. Oftentimes, when we have below freezing temperatures, we have ice crystals that are suspended in the atmosphere. Those ice crystals are in the shape of hexagons, so they're hexagonal ice crystals that act as a mirror where light is reflected towards the surface. It might seem like there's a beam of light coming from the surface of the Earth, but in reality, it's actually an optical illusion.
But while a light pillar can be generated by the sun, it turns out it's primarily our modern city lighting that causes them, and they're different colors.
It just depends on what the light source is, if it's a light post or if it's something coming from a residence or a building. Due to the differences in the sodium vapor within the lamps themselves, we're able to get distinct colors, such as the blue hues, we're able to get the orange hues, or even the yellow hues.
Our verdict? Light pillars. These rare phenomena have been spotted around the world on cold winter nights from Wyoming to Sweden, even the Antarctic. But conditions have to be just right for this rare phenomenon to occur. In most instances, when light pillars form, temperatures are minus 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, if not colder. So if you go out looking for them, don't forget your coat. Now from the ancient world to the modern world. For more than a century, people have reported seeing mysterious lights over North Carolina's Brown Mountain. But despite thousands of sightings and at least a dozen theories on the possible cause, to this day, no one has figured out what they are or if they're even real. Our next video may finally provide the proof we've been seeking. It's July 2016 in the Pisgah National Forest in western North Carolina. 2 astronomy-grade cameras have been installed by Appalachian State University astrophysicist Dr. Dan Caton to observe the Brown Mountain Ridge every night. And now they seem to have captured something inexplicable. Anomalous white lights blink on sporadically in the night sky high above the ridge and over the street lights down in the town. In the span of about 20 minutes, they appear at least 4 times. Dan says when he played back this footage, he was amazed.
This video stood out in that it had something that was obviously different. But we had a light here that persisted over 20 minutes, came and went, had no lateral motion sideways, had no up-down motion. These claims of paranormal, they deserve investigation.
Although accounts of the mysterious lights go back many years, the first published article about them only came out in 1912. Around this time, there were frequent reports of sightings from a spot near a local hotel in the mountains. Journalist M.J. Bonilla says the reports had reached such a fever pitch by 1922 that the U.S. Geological Survey decided to investigate.
People claim that what we're seeing here is a phenomenon known as ball lightning. You have static electricity just like you do with a regular lightning strike, except instead of it arcing into a sort of line, it balls up and it sort of hovers temporarily.
Others, though, believe the Brown Mountain lights have a spookier source.
There's a school of belief that the Brown Mountain lights are actually some sort of manifestation of spirits or ghosts. There's claims that soldiers from the Civil War were killed during a battle near the mountains, and what we see are their ghosts carrying lanterns at night.
Another theory that's been floated is train headlights. In 1913, a USGS investigator found that Southern Railway trains could be seen from Brown Mountain, and that many reported sightings lined up with the train schedule. But this idea was flushed out after the tracks washed away in a 1916 flood, and the sightings continued. So will our experts finally be the ones to get to the bottom of this centuries-old mystery? Physicist Dr. Matthew Shadagas explores the ball lightning hypothesis.
We don't understand from a scientific perspective how ball lightning could form. We have a series of equations in physics known as Maxwell's equations. Maxwell's equations tell us how to make predictions for how electrical phenomena behave. Unfortunately, Maxwell's equations don't give us something that look like ball lightning.
These four complex equations are named after Scottish physicist and mathematician James Clerk Maxwell, who came up with an early version of them in the 1860s. Based on the equations, the size of ball lightning's electric charge would be too great for it to move as observed here. So could the lights just be coming from a plane?
When the light shows up, it looks sort of like a floating, hovering ball. You know it's not a plane. A plane that has blinking lights is traveling through the frame is going to make a long, drawn-out line.
But what if it could be a reflection of a light on the ground, as we discussed before in the case of the Turkish UFO? Since we keep mentioning the Fata Morgana phenomenon, here's how it works. It occurs when the temperature of the air below the line of sight is colder than the air above. This causes light rays passing through to bend down, making the image of the object appear higher than the actual object.
This is an illusion that occurs near the horizon, and we see lights that are significantly above the horizon.
The high altitude of the lights doesn't seem to make much sense for the Fata Morgana theory, and the conditions need to be just right to create such an illusion. This is seen with such frequency, we're going to rule that explanation out. Therefore, our verdict is that the brown mountain lights remain unexplained. Hopefully, with continuing research, we will someday crack the code. You may have heard or said the famous phrase, "the sky is falling," which comes from a fable about a chicken who believes the sky is collapsing when an acorn hits him on the head. But can the sky actually fall? Watch this before you answer. December 2018, it's a hot day in the Western Australian town of Kalgoorlie. As storm clouds begin to gather on the horizon, Lee Stevens aims his camera at the menacing skies before him. Then, suddenly out of nowhere, he sees this. An eerie green specter appears in the clouds. It's slightly curved, almost like a crescent moon with a small spike towards one end. One thing is for sure, it's nothing like Lee has ever seen before.
It was quite a night, a lot of lightning and thunder around. I was like, oh wow, look at that. And I looked into the phone and we saw the green light. Now we stood there watching it and it was changing shapes and things.
But while many would assume lights in the sky during a storm is the work of Mother Nature, according to writer Aaron McCarthy, its odd shape and pointed edges lead many to believe it's a glitch in the Matrix.
It's a very old idea that perhaps reality is not reality, that we are actually living in a computer simulation that's run by a more advanced civilization than our own.
In 1965, Gordon Moore, the founder of Intel, postulated that the speed and capability of computers can be expected to double every 2 years. Now, picture human civilization millions of years in the future with computer processing power beyond anything we can imagine. What if they created a massive simulation to study their ancestors, and that sim is us? Our now is actually far in the future, and we are simply pixels in a program. Well, as with our own computer programs today, sometimes there's a bug. Could this strange anomaly in the sky be proof of a glitch in a future civilization simulation? The idea that the world is actually an illusion has been discussed in philosophy and in cultures throughout history, from ancient Greece to India to the Aztecs. In fact, it turns out some scientists actually put the probability that we are in a simulation at around 50-50. So is this mysterious green anomaly evidence of a computer sim gone wrong? Or could there be other factors at play? Our experts investigate. First, we go to meteorologist Juan Hernandez. Is it possible the weather that day is responsible for this ominous green light?
The weather conditions during the thunderstorms, they were quite chaotic. We had wind speeds in excess of about 70 miles an hour when these thunderstorms were coming through. Now, this here is fairly static. We don't see any wiggle or any flashes.
So then are we looking at a different kind of atmospheric phenomenon? Could this be the Southern Hemisphere's version of the Aurora Borealis?
When looking at the southern lights, everything is moving. It's not stationary. It looks like flying ribbons in the sky, and that's just not what we see here. This is a static light or a static net.
If natural explanations can be discounted, then could we really be living in an advanced computer simulation?
Well, to be fair, we can't discount any theory. However, I believe that applications of science can tell us what we're seeing.
Instead of computers controlling a simulation, D'Antonio begins by exploring the idea of computers controlling light.
Early in my analysis, I thought, could this be a green laser pointing into the sky and playing back and forth? Trouble was, the projection of the laser isn't gonna work that way on these soft clouds, and you won't get these hard edges. You'll get more of a diffuse glow.
But as D'Antonio digs deeper, he does find a very telling clue in the footage.
I noticed that, like this tree and everything, if you watch, boom, goes out of focus right there just as soon as that shows up. To me, the evidence takes us more toward an ordinary water drop on the camera. We're looking at a hot spot point source that's refracting light off of the water drop on the camera. And that's what we see here. In this reflection, the camera is saturated by this bright light out here. And so we're getting a reflection. I think that he was really excited by the thunderstorm that he was recording, and then he saw the object in the sky and said, whoa, look at that, that's cool. You know, probably didn't realize that he had water on his lens.
Our verdict, we're going with a water droplet on the lens. We think D'Antonio's observation that the bottom of the picture loses focus at the same time the anomaly occurs is the key. But hey, it's not every day that a simple explanation leads to such spectacular video. The great Jim Morrison once advised all motorists to keep your eyes on the road and your hands up on the wheel. But that's easier said than done when what's coming at you on the highway is breaking on through the doors of perception. It's a November night in 2019, and long-haul trucker James Cole is passing through Stevensville, Wisconsin. After hours of plain highway, he comes around a turn and sees this.
Man, what's with that purple in the sky?
A fuchsia light glows over the road, a stark contrast to the dark night sky.
That's kind of trippy, huh? Purple lights in the sky.
And it doesn't go away either. As James drives, it appears to get bigger and closer.
I was talking on the CB radio as I was passing other trucks to say, man, do you guys see this? What is this thing? What is that? No one was calling back, but it's most unusual.
James is perplexed by why his shout-outs to his fellow truckers are met with radio silence.
I had posted it to my YouTube channel. It got an uproar, but no one could really pinpoint exactly what it was, and I couldn't either.
So imagine you're the driver in this truck. You glance up to the skies and you see this. The first thing you notice, obviously, is the color. It's pink. And then you notice the shape, right? Not a sunset that I've ever seen. Not something tied to the Aurora Borealis. Not a beacon of any kind. This driver continued on his journey for miles. It never left the sky. It didn't appear to move. If I saw this on the road, I'd be pretty freaked out. Author Amy Teitel says the theories varied.
One of the leading theories was that this pink cloud is evidence of chemtrails. Chemtrails are a theory that the government is releasing toxic chemicals into the atmosphere by plane for a variety of reasons, ranging from mind control to weather control. Another theory is that this pink cloud is some kind of electromagnetic field or radiation, which is reminiscent of the famous Zona de Silencio in Mexico. This is a region in the Mapimi Desert where allegedly no cell phone or radio signals can get through. It is a complete dead silence zone.
An electromagnetic field is a force field produced by stationary electrical charges being combined with moving magnetic currents. This force could become entangled with CB radio waves, throwing off their signal or causing them to stop completely. Perhaps this is why James's CB radio couldn't reach anyone. What else could be at play here? Rumors about La Zona del Silencio began in 1970 when a U.S. military base fired a test missile toward the White Sand Missile Range, and the rocket ended up in the Mapimi Desert 400 miles south of its target. This secret operation remains a mystery. Could similar forces be at play in Wisconsin? Hopefully our experts can hit the mark. First, we turn to meteorologist Juan Hernandez. Could this be evidence of the fabled chemtrail?
We have actually 2 satellites that cover the whole Western Hemisphere. We would be able to detect if there was some sort of chemical being released into the atmosphere. In reality, what people call chemtrails are actually water vapor from the engines of the airplane, usually in a line. In this case, we don't have a line. It's more like a circular or a blob of light.
But what does he think about this being some sort of electromagnetic event? Physicist Matthew Shadagis weighs in.
I do find it intriguing that the truck driver claims to be unable to contact others because that would hint towards something electromagnetic in nature, but that doesn't necessarily correspond with a light in the sky. There are many different ways to create dead zones with cellular signals, but they're not going to produce a visible effect that you can see in the sky.
So what are we looking at?
I looked at the exit sign, where in Wisconsin this video took place, and it turns out that very nearby, there is an organization that runs an aquaponics facility that uses purple LEDs to grow their plants.
Aquaponics is a food production system that combines aquaculture of fish with hydroponics of plants. Nutrient-rich water and proper lighting for photosynthesis are key. So that kind of fits what James saw, but he started recording that footage miles away. So how could James see this from such a long distance?
Colors that are towards the end of the rainbow tend to scatter more easily in the atmosphere. That could explain why we see such a large purple mass in this video, because the lights from the LumaGrow LEDs can really scatter very easily through the atmosphere and create an eerie paranormal glow. The clouds could be reflecting light or refracting, which means bending the light, making it look much larger than it actually is. But it's just some botanists growing some plants and vegetation for us.
So it looks like we've solved this one, at least partly. We don't know why the radio went silent, but the strange purple light was coming from an aquaponic farm. Who knows, maybe James will find himself transporting some of the produce being grown there to a store near you. In the meantime, brother, keep on trucking.